your queen. Welcome to the apocalypse.
Who is the Junkertown Queen? We've pieced together every bit of information about this mysterious new character to find out who she is, what she wants, and if she's likely to become Overwatch's next playable hero. Here is everything we found out. The Queen was first mentioned in the trailer for the Junkertown map at Gamescom 2017, where she gave us a pretty good sense of her personality.
No rules, no mercy, only the strong survive.
But with the new map released, there are some fascinating clues as to the identity of the person behind the voice. The first and most important piece of information is this poster showing off the character. Posters have been used repeatedly by the Overwatch developers to hint at future heroes. D.Va was first hinted at on a poster in the Hanamura arcade before she was released in the beta, and of course Doomfist appeared in Numbani long before his reveal. Sombra and Ana also had similar visual hints on maps long before their release. Going back to the actual picture itself, there are a few things of note. First is her weapon. To me it looks like a large axe or halberd. The aesthetic is very mechanical and cobbled together from scrap, in a similar way to Junkrat's grenade launcher. Her clothing is also in the same vein as our other two Australian characters. The spiked shoulder pad is similar to Roadhog's, and her general look is very punk and rebellious. To be honest, she looks like a complete badass. Now, going back to her weapon, I can't find this particular axe anywhere on the map, but there are some similar weapons scattered around, including some next to her throne. What's interesting about this is we have seen a similar technique used to show where a character is living. For example, on the Necropolis map, you can see some of Ana's and Soldier 76's belongings. If these are her weapons, perhaps she has a mechanic involving weapon switching, mixing between the spear and that saw axe thing. This would be something quite unique and new for Overwatch. Or perhaps she normally carries the saw axe as a melee weapon, but she can throw the spear as her alternate fire. There are also a few other factors that indicate the Queen could become a new playable hero. There have been a number of named background characters that people have speculated could become playable one day, but the Queen has a few things that they don't. For example, if you cast your mind back to before Orissa's release, when people were speculating that Effie could become a new hero, it was pointed out that her young age meant it wasn't really a possibility. We speculated instead that she would make something to fight for her, which was essentially correct as she built Orissa to defend Numbani. The difference here is that the Queen is more than combat ready. She's clearly a seasoned fighter and an adult. Another example was Hammond the Space Ape. He was mentioned on the Horizon map, and while it's possible he could become a new hero one day, he really only exists as a name and possibly an image on the security cameras. The Queen goes far beyond this. She has a name, some artwork, and most importantly a voice actor, and a good voice actor at that. As it stands, it's not been revealed who she is, but she sounds amazing.
The end of the world's come and gone. Your past lives are a dream. It's time you woke up.
So let's take a look at what we know about this character as a person. She's clearly in charge of Junkertown, a shanty town in the Australian outback built around the ruins of an Omnium. She's charismatic, cunning and ruthless. The society she's formed around her has very few rules, and those that do exist basically mean fend for yourself and pay the Queen, and she's certainly doing well for herself. Another interesting note is that while she's almost certainly a violent criminal, she doesn't seem to be insane, at least not to the level of Junkrat.
What was it you think got us the boot? Stealing the Queen's cash? Blowing up her summer sack? The beatdown at the bar?
One thing she does have in common with Junkrat, however, is a hatred for Omnics. During the Omnic crisis, Australia was nearly destroyed, and following the war, the government gifted the country's Omnium and its surrounding lands to the Omnics in an attempt to establish peace. However, this displaced a lot of the Outback's human residents, and some of them formed a group known as the Australian Liberation Front. They attacked the Omnium and sabotaged its fusion core, resulting in an explosion that destroyed much of the facility and irradiated the region, making it uninhabitable for most. Those who stayed became known as the Junkers. Now, it's certainly possible that the Queen was a part of the Australian Liberation Front along with Roadhog. The last thing we know about her is that she loves the mech battles that take place in the scrapyard. She was described by developers as a former mech champion, who actually rose to power as a result of her prowess as a mech combatant in the scrapyard. Actually, I wonder if that could be her ultimate, calling in a mech for a short duration, kind of like the opposite of D.Va. So when might we see the Queen released? Well, if she is actually being teased here, BlizzCon this November is the most likely date. It's almost certain they will reveal a hero at the event, and like we mentioned earlier, the only other real contender we've had mention of recently is Hammond. However, if this is a similar thing to Doomfist, where it started out as just a background character that fans want turned into a real hero, we could have a lot longer to wait, and there's a good chance the BlizzCon hero could be someone completely different. What do you think about this potential new hero? Do you want her to be playable, or would you prefer her to stay as another background character? What role do you think she'll fit into, and what skills would you like to see? Let me know in the comments below. As always, this is James for Curse saying thanks for watching, and enjoy the game.